We've really become a nation of accentuating the negative and diminishing the positive. And I'm going to give you some paramount examples of two athletes. One that you'll see his picture prominently here, Shaq. But the old pioneer days, and when the Pilgrims came in here, the reason this country was great is people were able to accentuate the positive. Now everything is so negative. Where do you get anything? If it's positive, you'll never see it in the paper. You'll never see it on television. This isn't embellished. Let me give you a perfect example. 1982 or 81. I think it was 81 or 82. I get a call from an organization called Dreams Come True. And what they do, they grant terminally ill children a last wish. This little boy was dying. The mother said he probably had 2 months to live. But his wish, if he could ever get a signed basketball by the LSU basketball team. Would you do that? Well, obviously. Immediately. It was set up on a weekend. Never told anybody about it. Drove out there, walked in the house. Who's holding this 10-year-old boy and playing with him but Johnny Jones? I didn't tell Johnny. And he was a freshman at LSU. And I walked up to him. I said, Johnny, how'd you hear about this? He said, oh, a friend of their family. He said, he moved from DeRidder, lives right down the street, and they told me this little boy's dying, so we had the weekend off. I thought I'd come and see him. Boy, it just touched my heart. And I said, you know what, Johnny? This is what it should be about. So with him not knowing it, I went into the other room and used the telephone. I called every radio station and every TV station in this town. I said, this is a great story. Doesn't involve me. Here's an LSU athlete that is out here holding this little 10-year-old boy. You got to come out. You know how many showed up? 0. Now you can bet your bottom dollar. Had Johnny Jones been picked up for drunken driving, there'd have been 15 trucks with eyewitness news, and they always accentuate the negative. Second story. Shaquille O'Neal. The things he does are so far greater than basketball court. All those awards and championships and NBA and Hall of Famer and millionaire. Let me tell you some things you don't know, and you don't know them because he doesn't allow them to be. He doesn't publicize them. And number two, the media wouldn't do it anyway if it was positive. If it was negative, you can rest assured they would. Katrina and Rita. I hear through the grapevine from a policeman, hey, did you hear about your boy Shaq? What? He said, he got an 18-wheeler. He drove his SUV and drove ahead of this 18-wheeler, took it into New Orleans, brought medicine, food supplies, clothes. I said, what? So I called him. Shaq, why didn't you call me? He said, they told me you were in China. Well, I was supposed to have been in China, but I'd canceled the trip. Not one member of the newspaper did one thing about it. A week ago, guy that's been cleaning our pool, a Baton Rouge teacher and a swim coach, 25 years, he's out cleaning the pool, and I walk out in the morning, hey, George, what's going on? So we chit-chatted, so going back, Coach, would you do me a favor? I said, sure. He said, when are you going to see Shaq next? I said, I'm not sure, but he said, do me a favor. He said, a friend of mine is a nurse on the 3rd floor of Lady of the Lake, the children's section. Almost every time he comes to Baton Rouge, he comes unannounced, no media, comes to that 3rd floor and goes through every kid's hospital room. Now I can go on. I can give you tons and tons of stuff. 150 years ago, a guy made a pretty prominent statement, and that's what's happening to us right now. It's all negative. England couldn't figure out, Dr. Earl, couldn't figure out why in the heck, how could this dinky little old colony, how could they come down here in these swamps of Louisiana and build it? How could they break away from the greatest military power in history? So they sent their top historian, called their top historian in to talk, and said, you go to America and you find out what they are doing or what they did to break away from us. How did this happen? Spend as much time as you want. He came and spent nearly 14 months, 12 months here. As he was getting on a ship to go back to England, after spending a year going through this whole country, the media rushed to tell us a little bit about, what did you think about America? He said, wow. He said, I applaud you Americans. You may have founded the greatest republic in the history of the world. But I'm going to give you a warning. He said, your republic could be laid waste in the 20th century, like the Roman Empire was in the 5th century. With this difference, the Huns and Vandals who ravaged the Roman Empire came from without. Your Huns and Vandals will come from within, engendered in your own institutions, unless you remain dedicated, committed, and loyal to one another.